anybody's life who's trying to do something good are the media friends that they have. And today we've got Straits Times, Business Times, Leonard Chaopao, Singapore Kesai Shimbun, National Critics' Choice, Gourmet Living, Equil Asia. And also we've got Mr. Goh Shi Yong. Mr. Goh Shi Yong is here. He's actually retired from ABA, and on one phone call he immediately volunteered his time to be our media relations officer. Mr. Goh, thank you very much for being here. The next group of important people is led by Mr. George Madevan and Mr. Yo Woon Ling from PUB. We've been told you are now our lead agency because you surround us with a reservoir. So thank you for taking the time, both of you, to be here and to hear what we have got for you for 2016. And another important person who's here is Ian from the Rice Institute. Ian, thank you for coming in. And Flemina, Miss Beautiful, thank you for being here too. They're from the International Rice Research Institute. Actually, there's so many interesting things happening in Singapore which I don't even know about. Then we've got Andrew, who's our new lead photographer. And we've got a group of supporters here with us, people like Jackie, Angie, Jessica, Mervyn, etc., who are here. When they heard that we farmers got a project called 2016 and we're starting a supporters base, they immediately volunteered that time. So supporters, thank you very much. We've got 4 years of hard work ahead of us. Yeah. Then next, I need to thank my very hardworking Kranji Countryside Association Committee. Not all of whom are here, but Kenny is my vice president. Chelsea is my honorary secretary. And the rest of the members who are here are Malcolm and Stella. Have I left anyone up? And Malcolm and Stella, right, who are here. But I must thank a very special person who is here today, and that is Dr. Giam Tong Tao. Now, I must tell you a little story. When Ho Sing and I decided to retire in Singapore and found a piece of land, it would never have happened without Dr. Giam, right? And coincidentally, we were going to retire in Margaret River, which was also discovered by a doctor, right? And when we met Dr. Giam, he was ABA CEO. And we were the only farmers which were going to make everything so different, build our own house, etc., a restaurant and all that. And because he was CEO and had the foresight, he was the master planner of our destinies. So Dr. Giam, when I called him and said, would you assist us by chairing this 2016? Because by now you must know I'm not a farmer and I know nothing about agriculture, right? And one phone call, he immediately came on board to help us. So Dr. Giam, thank you very, very much. Next, I must also thank Howard, who's our patron. Again, good young man. On one phone call, he immediately came to be our patron because we need a young, handsome patron. And he's also agreed to be vice chair of the 2016. But I must tell you of another doctor who's missing, not here today, and he's Dr. Vivian Balakrishna, right? And like me, he's half Indian, half Chinese, and he's a special person because he was actually the most important person who helped us farmers get the guidelines changed. So the guidelines were changed maybe about, 5 years ago, and because the guidelines were changed, the entire Kranji countryside area blossomed. So can you send Dr. Vivian Balakrishna a note of thanks that his name was mentioned here? So we're actually very fortunate to have all these wonderful people who came to help us, and that is why we are here today to be able to announce that we have been given the wonderful opportunity to host the 2016 Royal Agriculture Society Conference for the whole of the Commonwealth. And we would expect maybe 300 people to turn up. So that's where we are and how we got here and a little bit of the setting the scene. As I introduced Howard earlier, I would now like to ask Howard, now that you know who he is and why he's sitting here with me, to say something on 2016. Howard?
Well, Thank you, Ivy. I think that it is truly unique that Singapore has been chosen as the first nation, Asian nation to host RASC. And I think one of the unique deciding factors of that decision was this very unique nexus that we have between a rural, not rural, but an agricultural production area, okay, that may be perceived as a mere sliver, and a huge industrial zone, and a huge commercial zone, and a huge urban city-state. And I think a lot of people are looking at that balance with great interest, because in a lot of developing countries and developed countries, we are seeing huge problems with urban migration and urban sprawl and degradation of productive land. And the two things don't go together very well, all right? We love to talk about sustainable cities. Singapore prides itself as being a sustainable city, but you actually can't be a sustainable city unless you have a sustainable food productivity area or rural area to balance that, right? So you need the two to go hand in hand. And as we've become relatively obsessed with the idea of sustainable urban environments, we've kind of like forgotten our agricultural assets. And a lot of people are buying out of their agricultural assets with the promise and hope of better economic sustainability in the cities. And that's not a sustainable model for the planet, obviously. And I think Singapore presents potentially a model where we can upscale and ramp up agricultural produce and primary production. It will never actually be supply the country in its entirety, but it can supplement to a larger degree. Even if we set ourselves a target of, say, 10 to 15%, we're way better off. And I think RASC does see this as a unique model that we can look into. We can ramp up the infrastructure in agriculture and farming in Singapore, and that be a model for many other countries in the region and around the world. Yeah. So I think the conference is going to be a very interesting session and a great deal of dialogue, and hopefully, it leads to some form of mindset change that, it's not just about oil and gas, it's not just about semiconductors and high tech, but it's about food as well. And we need to look into food security with as much urgency as we look into energy security, as we looked into water security 40 plus years ago, and that's very important. Yeah.
Thank you, Howard. You never fail to amaze me how a handsome young man like you has such a good brain. Yeah. And that's why you're my patron. Thanks again. Okay. At this point, let me officially introduce the 2016 committee. We're going to call it 2016 because it's such a mouthful, Rather call it Agriculture 2016. So, as I said, Dr. Giam is going to chair the committee. Howard is vice chairman, and Manda Fu, a lovely young Singaporean, has volunteered to be the secretary. She's a trained journalist and studied in Boston University, but this year she's traveling around the world. So she'll return and be the secretary that drives the 2016. Then, as I said, Mr. Goh Shiyong, thank you for agreeing to be our volunteer public relations manager, volunteer public relations person. And Kenny Eng, my vice president, Chelsea, the honorary secretary, and Zin, the executive secretary of the Kranji Countryside Association, and Carolyn, our where's beautiful Carolyn, our publicist, who's very kindly is on board helping us, and these wonderful angels all come and do it for love and affection and very little remuneration. You can be sure of that. And I'm on the committee as well. This is the starting group of the committee that will drive it until we recruit more people, right? So at this stage, Kenny Eng, my vice president, will tell a little bit of a story about KCA and RASC.
All right, good morning everyone. I guess I would just like to bring through everyone how this RASC conference came about. I think it came as a surprise to many, with the fact that Singapore is just an urban city. Why is there a need for agriculture? We felt the same way. That was 5 years ago. But today, I think it has changed. As you know, today we are announcing that we have won the bid as a hosting country for the 27th Commonwealth Agriculture Conference. Just give you a little bit of background of what RASC is all about. Founded in 1957 by His Royal Highness, the Duke of Edinburgh. The confederation of over 50 leading regional agricultural societies, association in more than 20 Commonwealth countries. And then one of the key missions of RASC is to encourage the interchange and development of sustainable agriculture, forestry, fishing, and rural environment. That came without a surprise when a few years back we are actually being invited to be part of this RASC society. So what happened was in 2007, KCA actually joined as an associate member. One of the council actually came by Singapore and met up with Ivy. And Ivy said, yeah, why not? I mean, it's a good opportunity for us to join a bigger society. And to our surprise itself, we are the only Asian in the whole Commonwealth society itself. And what happened was, the following year, myself and Chelsea were being sponsored by New Zealand Agriculture, that will be the authorities, and we went on for the next generation conference in New Zealand. And frankly, that was a turning point. Maybe I'll share with you a little bit about the experience that both of us had, and that will basically give you a better understanding of why this thing came out. We went with a heavy heart, like any other Singaporean. We are not a rural country, we are an urban city, but yet we are going to an agriculture conference, trying to share with them ideas that we thought will work. I was asked to do a presentation on what agritainment was all about because it was a concept that I coined that I believe that will work in small farming in Singapore. To our surprise, the next generation actually is defined as all farmers below 40. So that's why they had this next generation group that's coming through. During the presentation itself, what caught our surprise was they came to us and says, you guys had a great idea. I says, what do you mean? In their own countries, as an agriculture society for hundreds and hundreds of years, a lot of things didn't change much. They couldn't break through their problems sometimes. And at the end of the day, when we shared with them that they can bring entertainment to agriculture and turn it into something educational, something for people to come by, substantiate their current business model, they find that that was an exciting model. And that actually brought confidence to two of us, which is Chelsea and myself, as young generation, to believe that actually Singapore do have a space. Even though we are not agriculture based, but we do have the concept and ideology that we can actually transfer our knowledge and share this with the rest of the world. And that was the journey. And with that itself, Chelsea went further in 2010, because it's every 2 years the conference is held. She went over to United Kingdom, Scotland. And that was the time where we asked ourselves, should we try to do something different? During the past two conference that we met up with lots of friends. For a moment, we have friends from Papua New Guinea, we have friends from UK, Australia. I mean, never in our life we will get to know people from their countries. But when we were there, we became good friends. And one of the things that we shared was that they wanted to explore coming to Singapore. And we say, why not? And then that's where in 2010, Chelsea went on to Edinburgh, and we wanted to host the next generation mission trip. How it works for mission trip is like this. Every alternate years, there will be a mission trip to a developing country by the next generation farmers. Their job was basically to go down to a third world country to assist them by giving knowledge transfer to the agricultural society. So they have been to Papua New Guinea, they have done a few, and this time around they decided to enroll to Asia, the first ever Asia stop. And one of the places they decided to go was India. And that was something that they wanted to go, but they will do a 4-day stop in Singapore. And in 2010, we won the bid to allow the next generation farmers to come together to Singapore for an understanding mission trip. Because we felt that it's important for them to understand what Singapore is all about. We are just a red dot in the world. Nothing to really be talked about, but we have something that they wanted to know. And the title of the next generation mission was Rural-Urban Coexistence, Reality or Myth. Is it possible for agriculture to have a place in a city like Singapore? And what we did was we crafted out a very intensive 4-day program to bring them through, to let them understand what we are. We brought them to URA to say that how we are well planned as a city. We brought them to AVA to let them understand how agriculture is being done in Singapore as well. We brought them to the farms in Singapore. We even have all the way to the Kelong, Malcolm's farm. And we went there and we had a good session on a daily basis to discuss on the topics that is hot on the seat, which is food security. And that really caught us, and that was also the reason that we decided that the interest level was so high that we should actually try our bid for a bigger conference in Singapore. And that's how we decided to go for it. So during the conference, as you can see some of the photos, we visited farms, we had a hosting session, we have an inter-dialogue session as well. It's really amazing feeling for us as well, purely because I think for a moment when we discussed with them, we really understood the problems in their country. Like they will tell you in India what is happening, and in Papua New Guinea what is the pressure that they're having, in Zimbabwe what's going on, Zambia what's happening. Then of course our counterparts which is close to us like Australia, New Zealand, they'll tell you what's exactly happening on the ground. That really taught us a lot within a very short time frame. But in return, we share with them a vision that they never saw before. That in the city itself, which has always been attracting talents into the city to work, the farmers in the world are facing a crunch of talents. And that is the reason why Royal Society always do their agriculture shows. And that is the only way for them to attract young talents, to retain them, to make the society cool, that agriculture is a place for people to come by. And when they came to Singapore, they realized that it's such a huge attraction. Who do not want to come to an urban city where it's all well connected, technology is everywhere? But then they realized that we do have an agriculture base in Singapore. And what else have we done? We created ideas, ideology, technology transfer, created, and we are one of the best hub in Asia in terms of air and shipping, you name it. And this is one of the potential possible platform for them to come by and to really to understand Asia. And not forgetting, there's many Asian countries are not part of Commonwealth. And they see Singapore as the platform to link all the other countries, Southeast Asia or Asian countries, to come to Singapore together with Commonwealth to discuss a bigger issue in food security. So the mission was really good, and as what I shared earlier, Singapore will then be the center of Southeast Asia and will drive the future of regional food production. Understanding the fact that Singapore is small, I don't think we're here to talk about land. We're here to talk about concepts, technology, vision of how we can bring food security issues into something that is tangible, that we can transfer and share with more people. So this is why we decided to bid for 2016. When we went for the bid itself, we created a very intensive paper to make sure that we understand what is going on in Asia and around the world. A committee was set up, we crunched through the paper itself and we submitted. And this has finally came true, that Singapore has won the bid. The feeling we had, we almost wanted to do it like the YOG, where we wanted to do a video and say the winning country is Singapore, that was what we wanted to do. Alright, but we thought that, well, that's a bit, so we thought, okay, let's just do a press con and just share with everybody what it's all about. So I think the letter came through officially, and we are proud to announce that Singapore indeed is going to host the first inaugural Asian stop for the RSC, and we are really excited about it. I was just talking to Robin earlier and saying, wow, we have good 4 years. I say, exactly, that's what we need, because there is a gap that we need to build. We need to close the gap, and we need to make sure that agriculture in 4 years' time, all right, in terms of whatever visions that we put together from agencies and societies and the people of Singapore, we can come together to make this work as a place for them. It's not just about us. It's really to bring this new mindset to a lot of people, to let them understand that there is something that they can play a part with, and we can push this through as well. So in a nutshell, we won the bid, we're really happy, and that's why we're here today, and we thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny. You know, when I first met Kenny 10 years ago, he was on his way to Canada. He wanted to migrate to Canada. So I said to him, Kenny, you're not going to Canada, it's too cold. You're not a bear, your country is Singapore. Stay here and we will build grungy countryside together. And Kenny, my son, you've done well. But I must clarify something. He said, you know, when Ivy was invited by RASC to join, she decided, and I'm not a dictator, okay? Not completely, right? So actually I tabled it at the committee meeting, and surprisingly, the older Chinese farmers were the ones who said we should join. And when I asked them why, he said, look, you know, Ivy, we must go onto the international platform, and then our voice will be louder, you know. So I thought that was a very logical thing, and you know, through the exchange, and I think that was one of the biggest decisions that we made to join the association, to join the society. And we joined as what do you call it, associate at first, because it's quite expensive. Then we upgraded to a full member last year. All right, at this point, Dr. Giam, our new leader, may I invite you to say a few words? You can say more than a few words.
Thank you, Ivy. I'm usually a man of few words, so this will be very short. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, I share with the delight of all members of the Kranji Countryside Association in being given the opportunity to host this 2016 conference of the RASC. We are all aware that climate change and degradation of farmlands due to poor management of the fertility of the soil and consequent depletion of arable land will continue to reduce food production worldwide. There is now a sense of urgency that farmlands must be sustained through good agriculture practice, which will not only increase food production, but will also mitigate climate change. Low carbon farming methods are being encouraged. Farming at the rural-urban interface by bringing food production nearer to the large population in cities as well as mega cities is also being encouraged. And this farming at the rural-urban interface will reduce food needs and therefore help in mitigating climate change. We must now also address the question of how the ever-increasing population in cities and mega cities can be fed, especially the cities in Asia, where farmers are migrating to the urban areas and to the cities, and how will people in Asia sustain their farmlands to continue to produce enough food for the people of the country. So the RASC conferences have been addressing this issue. There's a whole series. This is a biennial conference and has been addressing these issues, and we are very pleased that at the conference in 2016, we in Singapore will be able to share with delegates our experience in farming at the rural-urban interface. Kenny and the new generation farmpreneurs is driving this change in mindset that in Singapore we can indeed farm at this interface without disturbing the environment, and also we will continue to sustain the precious farmlands that we have left in Singapore. And the Kranji Association, Kranji Countryside Association members have all done a really good job. In fact, I was responsible for establishing the agro-technology parks in Singapore, and I'm very, very happy to see the progress that we have achieved within these agro-technology parks, especially by members of the Kranji Countryside Association, the KCA. And as Kenny said, by having a conference in Singapore, we will provide a platform in Asia for interchange of experience and ideas of how we can improve productivity in agriculture without harming the earth. When Ivy asked me to join the organizing committee, I readily agreed. But then she asked me to chair the committee, and it was really a daunting task, I think, in the next 4 years. But I hope that with the whole team here, we can organize a very memorable and fruitful conference in 2016. But we need the help of everyone, from government agencies, the public, private agents, private companies, and so on, to help us organize this conference. And as Kenny rightly put it, we must use these 4 years to also improve our farming within our agrotech parks, so that we can better showcase what Singapore has done. What we have in Singapore is indeed very unique. A small little country with agriculture, right? And the constraints. Our farmers face a lot of challenges. Land is limited, land is costly, manpower is costly, but our farmers, through innovation, can compete with farmers around the region, and on top of that, give us very fresh food to our markets. So I'm very happy to help out in this conference, Ivy, and I look forward to the cooperation and the support of everyone in Singapore. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kiam, you have my promise. You know, he's like my husband. He's Hainanese, and he's a man of few words. And when I asked him to be chairman, he said yes. So you've got 3 things going for you. And I promise you, as long as there's life in my body, we will be behind you all the way. He was worried about getting sponsors, and I said he doesn't have to worry, because I think we have a very, very good platform. And already a lot of people are already quite interested when I've mentioned this, because people all realize that you cannot eat money, but you need food. So I think in the next 4 years, if we emphasize